What's up, everyone? Welcome to this week's second installment of DappRadar Meets. You're back with me, Ian, and a huge welcome. It's really cool to see so many people out there already. We're up to nearly 200 people, and we only just started talking. Awesome. So as always, we'll be recording the session for people to catch up later. If you missed any of these shows, you can get them on YouTube. Just head over to our channel where you can find hundreds of educational and analytical videos to help you on your DApp journey. So today, let's jump straight in. I'm not even going to do the DappRadar spiel today. I'm going to keep that for next week. But today, I'm really excited about the show. I mean, I'm always excited. This one has got a bit of a cherry on the top. For today's show, we're going to be diving into a topic that's really close to my heart, as it's the industry I used to work in before crypto and blockchain. So today, we're going to talk about the music industry and blockchain technology and how the two can marry up to disrupt a fairly static industry, to be honest, and mostly in regards to how they do business over there. I never mentioned in any of my previous shows or at any point that I used to work in the music industry and I was a raver, basically. And this guy that we're about to talk to, I used to stand on the other side and watch him DJ many times, and he came and did a few gigs for me too, which was awesome. So let's get him in. So to help me explain things today, I've got DJ Plastician, right, otherwise known as Chris. So I just want to get this out of the way. As I said, me and Chris met years ago. I think it's about 10 years ago now, under pretty funny circumstances when he came to DJ for me. He missed his train, but like a legend, he took a taxi and he got big respect from me for that. So yeah, man, he's always been someone who's been there on the top of my list. As a musician, I've always listened to him, and he was instrumental in the early days of dubstep in the UK. He was there alongside DJs like Benga, Scream, Marla, Koki, all before dubstep got a little bit wompy, I might say, Chris. His label Terrorism. Do you know what I mean? His label Terrorism has got some of the most seminal tracks at a time from artists like Joker, Om Unit, and today he's still a touring DJ, but he's turned his attention to blockchain and crypto and the tech underneath it all. So today we're kind of like picking each other's brains, and then most importantly, you guys can ask your questions. You can ask anything you want. Hopefully we can answer it. And yeah, we just want to talk about the industry and how it is ripe for disruption, but let's at least understand how it works first, because there's a lot of misconceptions about the music industry and how it works. So, Chris, big long intro. How you doing today, man? You good?
I'm good. Thanks for the intro. Made me sound really important, which is always nice.
Oh, mate, don't say that, Chris. No, I think it's a different show today, right? Like for regular listeners, we're usually talking to blockchains or dApps or NFT projects. So this is a bit different and obviously pretty cool. Seems as we've got over 200 people tuned in already. So
that's always nice.
Nice, isn't it? So this is like the new DJ sets for you, right? Like I saw your tweet the other day. Like you're doing loads of these at the moment, doing the rounds.
Oh, I definitely am. I feel like I've become like the go-to person in the UK to talk about electronic music and blockchain and like what to try and like dispel some of the myths, I think, for the music industry and the music creators, like label owners, rights holders, all sorts of people that are trying to figure out what this means. And I think it's easy to get caught up in the headlines of pictures of apes selling for millions of pounds or dollars and what that means, and it's quick to jump in. But for me, the underlying tech is what will probably last, especially for the music industry and some of the potential use cases for a lot of the technology that is there, and like what NFTs will allow artists to do, what it will allow their fans to do. There's lots for people to kind of like get into, but yeah, there's plenty of discussion at the moment. So like you said, it's podcast city for me at the moment. Podcast and panels,
fireside chats and all that. Very nice.
Exactly. Yeah,
Chris, that's cool, man. You've become this person who's obviously taken. I mean, I follow your music, and I just knew that you were into blockchain because I see you on Twitter. But I didn't instantly assume like, this is the guy. I think we should get this person in. Like, I just thought. I think the music industry is a funny one right now, and I think you've nailed it just at the beginning there, where there's lots to be discussed. Where do we begin, and how do we structure it correctly so that people can understand what problems there are to solve? So I think
Hmm.
starting at the beginning is always the best place to start, right? So I
Yeah.
wanted to get an idea. First of all, let's start with you, Chris. Like, what first piqued your interest about the tech, about blockchain, about crypto? Where did you first start seeing things? What was your baptism into blockchain?
So I think it was probably like similar to a lot of people, like from my background in music. I think like naturally, if you're into electronic music, you have like this underlying interest in tech. Growing up through the 80s and 90s, playing computer games, growing up with the excitement of the internet. So naturally, you're quite interested in what's next. And I think maybe I was reading an article or heard something on the news about Bitcoin, and I kept seeing this Bitcoin thing pop up, and I thought, what is that? And then bumped into an old school friend who started talking to me about it and was explaining that like he'd invested in it. It was back then. It was like, oh, you can buy things on the dark web with it, and all the dark stuff that you hear about. And I was like, I don't know. I didn't really know what the dark web was. I didn't know what any of this was,
Yeah,
but it got me interested in finding out what it was, and I didn't fully understand why anyone would need like a digital untraceable money. Then
yeah,
I kind of started reading about the dark web stuff. I'm like, oh, this is what it's being used for. And then obviously you get all the like bad press around that. And so again, I thought, I didn't personally have too much use for it. Didn't see it as an investment at the time, but that was like my initial understanding of what it was. And I think it was around 2016, 15 when I
pretty.
thought, oh, I might start like putting some money into it from an investment perspective. So the classic, Coinbase wallet, buy some Bitcoin, buy some
Yeah.
Ethereum, Litecoin, all of those like 2016,
The
what
big
we all did.
ones.
Ripple.
Were you
Every,
diamond hands though, Chris, or were you paper hands when it got to
I
2018?
was come 2018. I was definitely paper hands. I think like there was there. I didn't have loads of money in there, but it was like I watched. I was trying to sort of trade my way up to one Bitcoin,
Right.
and I didn't want to put too much in, and I was getting there. I think at one point I had like zero point 0.9 of a Bitcoin,
Oh,
and
nice.
then I aped into something because I read about this airdrop and a fork, and I was like, "That's gonna go." And then I got into it. The price rocketed, and then I was like, "This is gonna be massive." And then literally the day before the airdrop, it just got sold up. Obviously,
Yep.
traders rode it all the way up on the hype and sold it the day before the airdrop, the fork.
Man,
And I got stuck with that and just watched like about 70% of my net worth go down the drain. So, like
nice.
I said, I didn't have loads of money. So, in terms of like paper hands, diamond hands, I think it was more a case of like it was hardly worth enough for me to even bother selling it at the time. I left it alone, and it wasn't until maybe the end of 2018 when I sort of came back into it. I've been speaking to a friend of mine who worked at Consensus around the end of 2017. We were kind of like ideating an app for music distribution. So
Ah,
basically, like the same sort of Web 2 way of distributing your music to all of the platforms like Spotify, iTunes, etc., collecting your royalties, all of that. But it would allow artists to split their royalties, and it would, cut out the kind of like chasing each other for money, which, I think is a problem that Web 2 has sort of solved since.
yeah.
There are distributors out there that allow artists to create a split and like automatically be paid without one having to chase the other. So that is something that has been fixed since, didn't need Web 3, but there are still and like the blockchain's a lot more efficient now than it was in 2017. We were looking solely at like Ethereum, and the thought of like claiming royalties of like a couple of quid each with gas fees of like $50 to $100, like it wouldn't have made sense.
Oh,
But
yeah.
now we obviously have like layer twos and roll ups and all these things that would allow an app like that to work properly now. So yeah, I think I like got chatting back to Jesse again around the end of 2018, and became involved in some WhatsApp chat groups with a lot of like other sort of music tech, Web 3 kind of like tech nerds, and we all kind of like shared ideas, shared like alpha on NFT drops.
Okay, nice.
People came into the WhatsApp group, so it was just like access to a community of good minds that were all trying to figure the same problems
Nice.
out. Um, So yeah, that's probably pretty much been my journey. Obviously became involved in Friends with Benefits the summer of last year. Took a role on there, so I work for a DAO as well now, doing events for them.
Tell
And
us about this, Chris, the Friends with Benefits thing. So that's a London-based DAO, right? Well, not London.
no, Friends with Benefits is America based. Well, it's global. Obviously, it's a DAO, right? But it started in America. And they have like thousands of members all over the world. You know, you buy your way into membership via holding the token. That gets you access to private Discord channel, like a lot of classic DAOs do. But then beyond that, you know, they had a lot of success and a lot of investment and a lot of collaborations that brought in some money into like the kind of the community fund, which was then used to roll out this City DAOs experiment, which was at the end of last year, which is where I came in, really. I was already a member, London-based, and they announced that they were going to be rolling these City DAOs out in LA, New York, and London, which would basically allow members to attend IRL events for holding the token.
Yeah.
And it also kind of lowered the barrier of entry. So, like, the initial token gate was like 75 FWB to get into the Discord. But this new cities initiative would allow people to come in to the local channels for 5 FWB. So it doesn't give you access to the full Discord, but you get access to all of the kind of London, LA, New York channels, the general chat.
Nice.
I think a couple of other channels. But you also get access to the public events, and that's my role at the DAO. Is programming and like pretty much running the events in London. So we do like 3 a month. Members can turn up.
Nice.
Sometimes it'll be a dinner. Sometimes it'll be a panel discussion. Sometimes it'll be a rave. Literally anything. Like come to a pub with a bit of a tab behind the bar. Like all sorts of things going on.
It's just
so it's been really nice.
Like a group of like-minded individuals just kind of pooling ideas, getting things rolling.
Exactly. It's like meeting other people who are into crypto.
Yeah.
A lot. FWB is more of like a kind of creative community than it is a crypto community as well. So it's like it is kind of like built on the back of crypto, but a lot of the members are creatives or work in, you know, art, fashion, media, music.
Yeah.
So you do meet a lot of people similar to me who are like trying to figure out how to make this space work within like the kind of industry and disciplines that we work within. So it's been a really good experience for me to like meet loads of members of the DAO who have ideas, you know, like they bring their ideas to the table. We kind of put their events into motion as well. So as much as like I work for the DAO, it's more like you work with all the members, like try and realize what we all want from like an event. And yeah, like I said, I've been quite fortunate because a lot of the London members are into music, so there's an appetite for music focused events, and that means I can pull in my contacts and like pull the black book out, try and bring some good artists together. So we've had some great events, and hopefully that will continue.
It's really cool. I think it's very interesting what you said at the start here about, you know, kind of 2017, 18, having ideas around how blockchain technology could be utilized in the music industry. It was talked about a lot back then. I mean, I've been in this industry a while now, and it feels like back then when there wasn't much utility for tokens, there wasn't as many. There really wasn't much to do. The ideas all were kind of very logical. It was about using NFTs to buy properties and sharing the costs and very real world stuff. And then all of a sudden, all of us kind of got hijacked by DeFi and NFT and more sort of a basic premise of how we're rolling blockchain out right now. So I think it's really cool that we've come full circle almost, and now seems to be the moment. The tech is in place. The ideas were already in place. Now it's about kind of executing and seeing which direction to go, right? Like it's a really interesting time, I think.
I think the main problem that it has at the moment for a lot of people that like maybe trying to figure out, or maybe are at in their like journey where I was maybe a year or two back is, and it's easier now in the sense that there are people building apps that kind of like don't require you to have any coding knowledge to like mint a token or an NFT, or there's a lot more information on the internet, like how to mint an NFT, how to do this. You can do it cheaper. You know, apps like Collabland can help you token gate Discord or certain parts of your website. It's more about like educating people on why they might want to do that, because people like me, I'm like, oh, you know, we have a record, I run a record label, you know, probably have about 5,000 buying customers on Bandcamp. And the reason I say Bandcamp, if people don't know, is Bandcamp is like a direct to fan sales. It's a little bit like Patreon for record labels, except it's not, it does actually offer a subscription model, but it's more like if you buy my records on iTunes, your $5 goes to iTunes. They take their cut, which is about $1.30. So then they send like $3.70 to my distributor, who then takes 15%. They actually sit. I'm taking out the time here as well.
Yeah.
You pay for my album. iTunes sit on that money for 3 months, take their percentage.
3 months.
3 months later, 3 months yet. The distributor gets it, and then I'll wait another maybe 1 to 2 months before I'm accounted by them for that minus their 15%. There are other distributors out there that do things like this for free or for like an annual fee now. But because of the sort of business that my record label does, it is worth me paying the 15% to have all of the administrative help and stuff. But anyway, yeah, long story short, of that $5 that you pay for my album, eventually I'm probably only going to see about $2.50 of it.
It's crazy.
Something like that.
Isn't it?
And that's if I own 100% of the royalties. If you're on a record label, if you're on an independent, you're going to see half of that again. If you're signed to a major, you're going to see roughly 17% of all your final royalties.
Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm in the industry. I read about this all the time. I know how bad it is. But for people that maybe don't work in the industry, don't realise how little money artists actually make from streaming or selling their records. Obviously, selling is a bit better.
Yeah.
But that's where something like Bandcamp comes in. Bandcamp, if you buy my album on there, they'll take, I think, like a 10% fee, and the rest of it's mine, and it lands in my PayPal like within minutes of you buying it. So it's as close to like the Web3 experience that we have in the world of music in Web2. So it's always like my, how would Bandcamp work in Web3 is like this is like, how can we do that better? Because Bandcamp's the best that we have at the moment. What can Web3 offer? And then obviously things like, the beauty of Bandcamp is you get access to like message your followers and your supporters and people who've paid money through their app. Like, hey, anyone who bought this album, here's like a free download of this, or here's like some free footage of something. So like we do have access, whereas I have 50,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. Can't tell you a single one of them is. I can't contact them. I can't let them know I've got a tour coming to their town. I don't get access to any of that data. You know, like not even like anonymous data. Like we can see which cities by percentage our listeners are in, but we can't reach them. We can't like find them. We can't contact them. And I think like the beauty of NFTs and stuff like that is like airdropping something to all holders of X or all holders of Y, or it's like, yeah, like POAPs, like let me just like airdrop something to everyone who attended the event in London to let them know I'm back next month. Like all this stuff that I understand because I know how it works and know some use cases for it are things that I think most artists would use. It's just they still don't know that you can do this with an NFT or with a token. Like if someone holds your token, quick snapshot of every wallet, mint X amount of NFTs, and you can send them out like flyers. You know, like we all, I'm sure anyone listening to this, go into like your hidden folder on OpenSea and see the state of it. Like a million airdrop mint list tokens. Like people that use them like flyers now, but like I don't know why more musicians aren't doing this already. But like here you go. If you're a musician, you listen to this, mint an NFT, give it away for free, and suddenly you've got 10,000 people who you can like flyer your next release to. Or it's like it makes total sense, and it's like the cost of it is like next to nothing, but you're reaching people who already shown an interest in what you're doing. So I think that's where the true power is, because we don't need to see like the beauty of like Web3 is like an example, you know, like we get your wallet address. I don't know who you are. I don't know where you live, but I can still contact you without having any of your personal data. And the problem with Web2 is the platforms that do give us people's personal data. I've got your email address. I've probably got your home address. Like like I don't need that to contact you. If you don't want to give that up, you don't have to in Web3. Whereas in Web2, you got to make a purchase. And it's like you can make a purchase and still stay, keep control of your data, which many of us probably like take for granted now. But I think as in the next sort of 5 to 10 years, we'll all become very hyper aware of like the value of our attention and our data. And
So
there's already platforms popping up that will pay you for watching ads instead of like using you to sell ads. So
yeah, I can see that.
We're going to see more.
I can see that flip coming, where I think in the past it's like we've given all our data up, and then the companies and organizations, these centralized entities, have then chosen what to market to us. So we didn't really get a say in it, right? We just gave it all up for the sake of a free platform, like we always like
exactly
the product. You're the product, basically. And we have been for like nearly a decade now, and I think it's quite scary. And I do see a flip coming whereby people want to choose what they receive, and in music that couldn't be any more true, right? Like if I'm into a certain type of music, I don't want to be getting pushed gigs for rock bands if I'm into house music. Like it just doesn't fit, and then you disconnect with if you're getting that kind of marketing on a regular basis getting pumped into your inbox, you just disconnect because you just think, well, they don't know who I am, they don't even care who I am, they just pumping me, and 1 in 10 I might click. And very faceless and soulless. And like you said, Chris, that's really cool. Like, people come to see you live, they come to your gig, and maybe a year later you're back in that city. It'd be amazing to be able like they've got a digital ticket that can evolve fundamentally and can tell them, hey, remember, he's back. Like, and that is so powerful compared to
like you've got the power, so therefore you get like first dibs on the ticket for the next show or something like that, like early access to ticket sales. Like all of these things are going to become so normal, I think, and it is so powerful for like promoters, for musicians, for independent label owners, for all these people that like we have to pay through the nose to do this kind of thing right now. It's insane how much money that like a company will pay you to like mail out your new track to like 500 DJs that are of a certain like caliber.
Is it, Chris?
But if you know,
like what's the kind of going rate for something like that on? I'm trying to think of
a PR campaign. Like, to give you an example of like, so like it's like a PR campaign, for example. I'm an independent label owner, so I put other people's music out as well. I can give you an example of so an artist whose album I was putting out a couple years ago. I made an inquiry to a very specialist niche music PR company about doing the PR campaign for their album. The PR on the music side basically is them hitting up their contacts in print media, so you like Mixmag, DJ Mag, iDJ Mag, like, and then beyond that to like Rolling Stone if they're of that kind of ilk, The Quietus, Q, all these like magazines. So they contact them, they contact like the upper end sort of like music blogs, websites, and then they may be pitched to a few big channels on SoundCloud, YouTube, like to see if they want to do a premiere of said track from said album. So it's not a lot of, it doesn't sound like a lot of work, right? That's one person's work for about 5 days, realistically. If you're paying for their contacts, it's like if they have a good track record of like nailing this for other people's albums, they can put their prices up because they've got proof of work, like if you like, Web3 sense. But so we got quoted for an artist who he'd never released an album before. He'd maybe put about 3 or 4 EPs out. We're not talking big numbers. If you looked at his like top most listened to track on Spotify back then, you'd have been able to see stats of about 5,000 plays, and on SoundCloud maybe like 20,000-30,000 on like the most popular songs on his profile. And we got quoted £2,500 for this PR campaign. It's like the actual reality of that is I could do that work in a couple of days. Probably. So I did it myself, but that's I can do that myself because I have all the same contacts that most of these PR companies have, because I've been in the industry for 20 years. I've spoken to every journalist under the sun. I know every publication. So it makes no sense for me as a record label to do that because I can do it myself. And that's why artists who release on my labels do actually make some money, because I'll do all the work. I won't pay for PR. I won't pay for radio plugin. I won't pay for YouTube advertising. I won't pay for any of it because I just don't see the point. I can do a lot of it myself. So I'll take my cut of the royalties based on the work I put in. And because it's quite niche music, I'm not expecting to turn it into £1 million. Do you know what I mean? It's the sort of music I'm putting out. It might be over the course of a year, a release like that might earn me £1,000 or two at best.
Yeah.
Like, I'm doing it more because I like the music. I'm trying to help artists get their first bits of music out. And, you know, even like you mentioned at the beginning of the show, like artists like On Unit and Joker, their first releases were on my label. And yeah, that's the kind of thing that I do. I'm never expecting to make loads of money from it. So, you know, spending a couple of grand on something is like, I'm not making money from that. The minute I spend £2,000 on a release, it might take me 2 years to bring that into the green, right out of that kind of cost.
Those time frames that you mentioned as well, you'd have to have a monthly release schedule, pretty much. You'd never get paid. You'd just be waiting constantly for the next one, and then if you didn't have a regular schedule of drops, you wouldn't be getting anything. It just basically be a waste of time.
Exactly.
And also,
and the way that the way that the algorithms work as well, like, you know, it's the same with things like YouTube. If you don't upload every day on YouTube, then you fall out of the algorithm. Your views start going down, therefore your pay comes down. Spotify is the same. If like you don't keep hitting them with something every few months, if like you're not keeping your listener base like active and growing it, then you're not likely to land in the playlist. And if you don't land in the playlist, your song's going to get 1/10 of the plays it might have got. Like, it's insane. Like my top sort of 5 tracks on my Spotify are like probably the classic ones that you'd expect from my catalogue, but there's 2 or 3 outliers in there that you would probably have never heard before. And the reason they are is because they've gone into Spotify playlists, and that make them 10 times bigger than most of my tracks that people will know out of my catalogue that maybe aren't in the top 10. But yeah, we're so reliant on a handout from these companies, and they know it because we need to keep them sweet, because we need them to put us in the playlist, and if they don't, we'll be begging them to put us in it next time, and we'll be paying for the pleasure of it. So it is tough. It's like there's definitely a need for something better. Obviously the main problem though is the consumers are comfortable paying their £10 a month to Spotify and just having access to everything unlimited. It's like, unless you make it less money than that, you're not gonna move them, and the behavior's learned. So why would they start playing for music? So it's down to us as musicians to like communicate to our supporters who really care that you can go listen to the album, no problem, or you can buy it here and you can listen to it on the Bandcamp app or whatever comes next. Hopefully there'll be something like this. Obviously, sure, we'll get into talking about platforms like Audius and all of these sort of Web3 native streaming apps that are coming out and being spoken of and being built, I'm sure. But yeah, so long as we don't fall into the traps of the same broken sort of like royalty pyramids, if you like, for artists and for label owners, and it just needs to be fairer. I don't expect like anyone to be making like millions overnight from this, but it's a slow build, and I think that's what a lot of people don't see. I've been in the industry 20 years. I remember what it was like to sell records out the back of my car, like literal actual vinyl. So like it took me years to like start becoming profitable. But now most people, it's like, you know, you go viral on TikTok, the next day you sign a 7-single deal with a major and get £100,000 advance for it. It's great, £100,000 in your bank, but you're going to be repaying that advance for about 7 to 8 years. So that will be the only money you'll see from that deal.
That's another thing that people
and you'll be
don't understand, those particulars of deals where you see an artist and I know a bit about this, having worked with them as well, but you obviously know a lot more. It's like people have an assumption that musicians are making a ton of money most of the time, and I know that a lot are not. And as you're rightly saying, that a release schedule, even as packed as it can be, you're still not making a whole heap of money. But what it leads me to, Chris, is to think about the idea of Spotify and the idea of these massive behemoth monopolistic platforms, I would call them, whereby if I'm a new artist and I'm 18, 17, whatever, however old I am, a young artist coming up, I want to be a DJ, I've done a few tracks. feel almost like the status quo is there's a certain road you've got to go down, and people are still going down that road, as it were. Like they rely, like you said, they rely on Spotify for distribution is the key, right? Your music can be absolutely amazing. No one's listening to it because they've not got access to it, then it's never going to go anywhere. So it's a bit chicken and egg, in my opinion. Like, you've got platforms like Spotify that are just monopolizing it. They're basically holding all the audience and saying to you, right, we'll give you a small percentage, but you get access to this huge audience. Like you said, it should be fairer. Then again,
I think it's like their sort of royalty structure. I think SoundCloud made a good step forward maybe a year or two back, where they changed their royalty structure. So at the moment, the way Spotify works is you pay your £10 a month. If you listen to nothing but me on Spotify, I'm not getting your £10. Your £10 goes into a massive pot, and then they take all that money. They take all of the money they need to pay their staff and whatever else they got to pay for. You know, they pay. That goes into the big pot, and then they look at every artist on the platform, however many, there's probably millions of artists on Spotify and millions of tracks and that, right? And then that basically is like that, all of those plays for the last month get split up equally among every song on the platform. So if they make, if you basically, if you make up 1% of all of Spotify's plays on the platform, like someone like Ed Sheeran might actually do, then you'll get 1% of that month's pot at the rate that they're paying. And obviously I'm not Ed Sheeran, so I'm not seeing a lot of that pot. But you know, it kind of like encourages you to game the try and game the algorithm. Encourages you to make, like, you know, there was a famous band, I think they were like Danish or something, that they made an album that was completely silent, and it was 30-second long tracks, because to get a play paid out on Spotify, someone has to play it for 30 seconds. So they basically made an album of like 10 tracks that was 30 seconds long each, that were all silence, and it was like, play this in your sleep. And Spotify did not like that, but it did like make you realize, you know, here's art for earning's sake. You know, the Spotify playlists will only put sort of the radio edit of something in. So for people like me who make electronic music, traditionally electronic music for DJs, tracks will normally be, or used to be, between 4.5 to 6 minutes long. Now electronic music tracks will be anything from like 1.5 minutes to like 3.5 minutes long, because if they put a 6-minute long track out on Spotify, it's not landing in a single playlist. If they put a 2.5-minute version of it, it might well get in one of those playlists. So if you've ever wondered why electronic music tracks are not long anymore, Spotify.
Oh, damn you, Spotify. I have been thinking about that, Chris, quite a bit, because I know there's like the radio version, but now it feels like they're just making the radio version as the standard version these days. There is no extended, like,
it is, yeah. You need it. If you have to have it. I mean, like, as a DJ, a 2.5-minute long version of something is a nightmare for me. I'm like, just give me a 5-minute long, 2.5 minute. But you know, like, if you are sort of like if you are the average kind of listener on Spotify, you don't want to listen to the same song for 5 minutes. And the reason most of those songs are 5 minutes is because DJ needs that first minute to like mix it, do the mix, like blend the tracks together. That first minute is like there for DJs to be able to mix. It's not really there to be listened to. So it does make sense. It is one of these things that you need, but like, that is the reason that a lot of like songs you hear will be short, even in the electronic sphere, because they're being made to be listened to, they're not thinking of the DJ anymore. They're thinking of the Spotify end user when they're making their music. So yeah, it's interesting. I think that's another thing that maybe like I'd like to see exploited a bit more as artists move into this sort of NFT space, being a little bit more experimental, putting out like a 10-minute version of something, because you know their core fans are going to buy it. It's not going to like it'll either be bought by their core fans or by like someone who's trying to speculate on it, like being able to flip it, right? Like an NFT trader. So you can be quite experimental, because your core fans are going to want to hear that, and the people that are trying to flip it want it to be as like rare as possible or as like unusual. I think that's where like artists need to get clever with their NFT drops, because it's super easy for them to just put like a beat on the blockchain and go, here, I'll slap a 10 grand like price tag on it and expect it to sell.
It happens already.
But that's not It does happen, but I don't think it happens as much now because no one's the first to do it. No one like 2 or 3 years ago, if you put an album out on the blockchain, you could actually go, "This is the first ever rap album on the blockchain." You could actually say things like that, and it was true. And anyone who has had any like remote interest in music might have gone, "Well, I'll pick that up because that's a piece of history." And now all of those are done, so it's just about how do you convert some of your sort of like buying audience in the Web 2 world into buying an NFT version instead of an MP3 version of it, and showing them why that might be better for them, not just for you. It's like you could keep them the same price, but like if you show them why having that NFT token in a wallet gives them access to this, gives them access to that, gets them early access to this, gets them exclusive piece of merch, or like you can really show people this is what musicians need. This is what the music industry needs education on, is why NFT versus download. You know, people don't, a lot of 90% of artists probably don't even sell downloads anymore, but for the electronic musicians and people like me in these niche genres, we do still sell downloads because DJs need our music and they still need files to put on their USB sticks, at least for the most part, right? So it's like, how do they get their files but also get this token in their wallet, and then we can like make sure that they're looked after when the next thing comes out? And I think that's where it really excites me, is like that all of this makes too much sense to me. It's like this cannot fail, in at least in this underground market, and then, you know, the underground feeds the mainstream eventually. So if we all get to this first, because the mainstream are not going to be able to do this because their deals didn't, you know, like the Beyoncés and people like that have signed these 10-year 10-album deals with the majors. They're locked in those deals, and those deals are not going to change anytime soon because they profit the majors so well and they live off of these deals, right? Suddenly we've got NFTs in the mix. An artist wants to mint an NFT of their classic album that like is owned by Warner. They're not going to let them do that without a massive cut of the profits, and the artist certainly isn't going to give up a massive cut of their NFT earnings, perpetual earnings for the rest of their life on resales and all that kind of thing that we already see. So these people are going to be arguing about their old back catalogue deals for the next 10, 15 years, while we all can figure it out now with our new music. So this is why we need to.
That's a really important point, I think. Like, you've got the difference there between mainstream music lovers and underground music lovers, and I see a big difference there, man. Like, if I go to, like, when I used to go raving, I'm going to watch the DJ and listen to the music that they play. I'm actually interested in what they play. Like, if you go out on a drunken Friday night with your mates from uni, you don't care what's being played. Do you know what I mean? It's two different types of nights out, and arguably the underground fans are primed for this kind of interaction whereby they want to be part of a clique, they want to get in the dubstep gang, they want to be at the coolest events, they want to be at Boiler Room. Do you know what I mean? Like that kind of, you want to be on the camera. Well, you don't, but if you value your
some people do.
Some people want to be there. But that kind of thing occurs to me, that like the underground fans and people like yourself have got a direct connection there. But I want to talk about the fans, Chris. Like, how the old school way of doing things, you're obviously building your own fan base, you're building a brand around yourself. So you might build it on social, but still you weren't able to kind of interact with the music. So let's talk about this whole thing in the wild a little bit. Like, how could it look if, let's say, me and you are like some very successful artist pairing, we've teamed up and now we're smashing it, and we think, and again, I just want to say about your legacy point there about old artists arguing about royalties, kind of thinking, you know, they may be enthralled in those arguments for years. The future of blockchain and music lies in new artists, right? People like 3Low, who I'd never heard of, but then suddenly is all of a sudden a big deal because of this link with tech.
He embraced it before most people. Access to devs who could help him like realize his ideas and his ambitions. And talking again about people who did something first, you know, he was the first to like mint his album on the blockchain and like release it as like a blockchain collectible, and you know, you could claim a vinyl if you own the NFT, and that will now be, you know, like there'll be people that argue that it wasn't the first, but it was the first one of like that had that much ambition, I think, to do it in a specific way, and you know, had a special site where you could mint it and stuff like that. It was like the experience was very new. It's like, oh, I go to the artist website, I can mint an NFT, I can burn it for a vinyl, I can like pay for the expensive one and sit in the studio with him for a day or go on tour with him. Like that was like, wow, no one's done that before. And I felt at the time that was the first time I'd seen anyone do that. And you know, like he was one of the people that I was mentioning, like getting in sort of these WhatsApp groups with years ago. He's in these groups, like we're ideating these things. I'm seeing them, and it's just like there's a bigger group of artists now. Like it might have been me and a bunch of people in this WhatsApp group, but like there's thousands of musicians in the same space that we're all trying to figure this out still. And I think that's another thing that's beautiful about this Web3 space is no one's an expert. We're all trying to figure this out. We're all trying to learn. We're all trying to help each other. It's just about trying to weed out the bad actors and find all the cool, nice people who are trying to help each other, and you know, building some trust and some community around all these ideas that we're forming. So yeah, I think it's good that people are having these conversations, and it's like doing all these podcasts. Hopefully, will help us all.
It is education, and I think most people I've spoken to, because after I organised things with yourself, I went on a bit of a flurry and started talking to some other DJs and other artists, creatives. I must admit, a lot of them had no knowledge really. They were all interested, super interested. What can it do for me? How can I leverage it?
Yep.
They didn't know anything, and I just. It brings me back to my old days as an agent, whereby I used to tell my DJs, "Look, man, you focus on DJing. I'll focus on the parties and the crappy logistical side of it." Do you know what I mean? Like they. So is it perhaps that artists are just still stuck in that place where I just want to make music, man, and they're not really bothered about the tech and how it could all help them? And how are we gonna get them educated, Chris? Do you know what I mean? Like, does that make sense? What I'm saying, that they're just not. Creatives are creatives.
Yeah.
Right? I always found that like they were useless at doing anything but making music. But that's what they were
that's true.
Though, right?
That's
that was their job. So I gave them that luxury. That's what they're good at. But does it?
There are, definitely. And I think this is it. Is like there needs to be. It will take like a few more artists and people that have that bug like I have, is that I quite enjoy the process, whereas a lot of people just like to make music. I don't particularly enjoy making music, believe it or not. Like some people will be surprised to hear that, but I do not. Like you give me a day off in the week, I am not going, cool, I'm going to go and make some music. Like that is the last thing I'm trying to do. I'll sit in my bed watching football before I turn on my music program. Quite happy doing that. But yeah, I think like a lot of artists maybe don't enjoy the process, and it's just like if they start enjoying it. But also I think it's access to like this tech is really new and it's quite alien to a lot of conversation and a lot of their friendship groups, especially people of my age. Like I'm nearly 40, and it's like my friends are not. I don't know many sort of developers in the Web3 space until I got into it and got involved and kind of nerded out a little bit about it and met other people, and obviously joining the DAO helped a lot. But I think if most of these people could sit in a room and go, right, I've got this idea for an NFT. Could I do this? If they're sat in a room with a dev who builds like smart contracts and apps, they can turn around and go, well, you can't do that because this, but you could do this, and I could help you build this. I can show you an example of how that would work. And then, you know, their creative brain gets working. It's like, oh, we're making something together. I think that's different to like sitting down with your accountant and looking at like your 0.00001 pence that you made off of that stream, and like how much do we have to split that up with like the 10 members of your band and your touring act, and does your agent take any of that? And like that is boring to artists. That's different though. I do think that like there's an excitement about this still, but they just don't know where to find those people who are hopefully like devs but also into music. It's like you kind of want to sit down with a dev who kind of knows a little bit about who you are or what might be cool to you, because you could find yourself sat in a room with a dev who, you know, thinks something like EDC is like really cool, but like you're like, oh, but I really like, I'm into Berlin techno, like black clothes, don't talk to anyone. It's like you need to find like the dev that kind of gets what your final aims are and what might be cool and what might not be, because otherwise you end up with like conflicting ideas. And it's a little bit like sitting in the studio to make a track with someone who doesn't listen to your music. It's like, mate, that's whack. Like that snare's just not cool in like what I'm trying to do. It's too loud. Or, but you know, they come from a different background. And it's the same. It's like, how do we put these people in a room together, like devs, investors, people who get what this artist, like, you know, someone like Mala, if you like listening to dubstep, or if you're familiar with the kind of music that I come from, like Mala doing, like, imagine Mala doing like a 10k PFP. Like, he wouldn't do that.
He just wouldn't do it, would he? I just can't see. And even if somebody told him to do it, he might be like, "Oh no, I'm not getting on the wagon."
Exactly. That he would think that seems a little bit, that seems like a money grab or whatever. But if you said to Mala, why don't you just give a free POAP away at like the DMZ event, and then, you know, like you can kind of drop a token or like another a POAP or an NFT to everyone who turned up, like give them access to like an EP or a bonus track or something like that. And he would do that. He'd be like, that sounds cool.
What you educate them on, it's like, isn't it? Where you start with this whole journey, like.
Yeah, and it's like understanding what the wants and needs of the artist are, meeting another developer who maybe gets the artist's like vision for, or what might make them excited. Is like, and I find that I've been in these meetings before where like, or like these panels where like I'll sit down and all that people will be talking about is like 10k, 5,000 like PFPs and like generational like music things. It's like, yeah, like that's cool to like tech side and like money side, but if you're talking to the musicians, like if I give you stems of one of my tracks and you make 8,000 versions of it, that they all sound like shit to me. So I'd rather not do that. But that seems to be the thing that everyone's always like, what about generating 20 versions of your track?
They
just
like,
just some people might think that's cool,
Chris, right? They just see it, like you said right at the beginning, you see the ape face selling for millions and you're like, are they just it's like blindly grabbing what they've heard of, almost like, oh, that's the sad
exactly
thing, right? Yeah, I could do 10,000. Anyone could do, like you see on BBC News, the kid, he made the whales, he's like 14 years old. Really, this inspired people to do stupid things, but it's almost like we just need to say it is cool.
It's cool, but it's like there's other ways to do it. It's like, that's great, but like, you know, like if you put it in music terms, it's like that is like, it looks like a cash grab to most people. That like, if you've built your foundations on like being this like very sort of the earth character that people, you know, it's all about bringing the community together, blah blah, and then you drop a 10k PFP project on them that's going to cost them loads of money to get into, and there's no talk of utility or anything like that, then that's not really on brand for you as an artist. And this is what a lot of people don't realize, is how important like the tone of voice is to an artist, to a music act, to a label. It's like, I think like a lot of the Web3 side maybe just need to hear the wants and needs of the musicians a bit more first, and figure out if there's a way we can work together on things, rather than like trying to like squeeze us into this idea that they've got, which is what a lot of the discussions I have with like developers tends to be like, hey, like I'm generating 15,000 versions of people's tracks. Like, it's like, I don't really want to do that, but I get why that would be exciting. That might be exciting to a developer, but not maybe to a musician.
That's a really good point, man. Like marrying the two ambitions together, right? Like you've got, as I said, like you've got these musicians who are creatives, and then you've got, it's a bit like people say the suits ruined music, right? Like the suits care about the money, and the musicians care about the music, and the two, never the twain did they really get on with each other in that, because you can't. This is creativity. Musicians are creatives. And they're like, oh, I don't care if I sell it, you know, it's just for the love.
We do want to earn from our music, and we'd love to live off of it, but at the cost of having a career that lasts more than a few years, because you can do something like that and you could live off of it quite nicely for a couple years, but then you're probably not going to get booked anywhere because like it left a sour taste in people's mouths, and it's like, you have to be really careful about like the steps you tread in this industry. And you just have to be quite true to yourself. You have to like go about things a certain way. And I think that, yeah, it is a risk. Like you can lose everything in this industry overnight. One bad move, and like you'll be trying to like work your way back out of it. And it can be as stupid as like a track you played at a festival that someone filmed on their phone and uploaded and went viral. And it's like, oh, I can't believe he played that. That's horrendous. He's a joke. Like, and I've seen it happen to artists that people like will become the laughing stock of Twitter for a few weeks, and you won't see them on any lineups the next year because like people think they're a joke. It's like as little as something like that, like a track, or you know. And then there's people that obviously get cancelled for like all the correct reasons. But you know, like they thought they were sharing some like something on the internet that they found funny, and it's like, yeah, career done. But so I think that's the worrying thing about the blockchain is like a lot of the backlash that people saw. Oh, I'm doing an NFT drop, even if it's like a legit, you know, like a one of one on like catalog or something like that, and they'll just have in their Twitter mentions, "You're burning the environment down. Like the Earth is going to like melt because of this NFT," and
Killing.
it's like artists are genuinely scared of that as well, and that's another thing we all have to be very aware of in this space is musicians are scared to death of being cancelled over an NFT drop that they were trying to do the right way as well. Like you can communicate as much as you want. Oh, it's on this chain, it's on that, it's carbon negative, it's blah blah blah. I'm planting a tree for everyone. It doesn't matter. All that they care about is said artist doing NFT equals bad for the environment, cash grab, all of the things that you know you've probably read. But artists are genuinely scared, and that is one of the biggest kickbacks I've had from working in like NFT. I'm working on an NFT platform with a group of music heads at the moment, and a lot of the sort of kickback we've got from artists that we reached out to show it to them is like, oh, I don't know, man. I think the NFTs might get me cancelled, and it's a genuine fear. Yeah,
that's
it's a real
super
thing.
interesting. I mean, I expect all the cancels thing. I know that they have to tread carefully, but actually putting those two together now more than ever could actually be the worst time to do it, right?
Especially for like a lot of artists where like they might speak a lot on like climate change, and that might be a thing that they're really into, but they might also be really into like helping the community and trying to build a community, which Web3 is great for. But then like, you know, in one box, great, an NFT drop would be fantastic for your community. In the other box, don't think that the climate change people are going to be too happy about this, and that is like one of the main problems.
Well, it's scary, isn't it? If you get cancelled out because of a decision you make, and like you say, careers in music these days are not all that long anyway, are they? I mean, if you're lucky, you might go a decade, but it's not like well, even like when you started and when I was doing parties, some of those guys they're still around now, which is quite surprising to me. Like I see it, they've got longevity, man. As a DJ,
it is.
All of you guys are still doing your thing, and obviously there's ones that dropped off, and the cancel culture, I've seen it like in live, and I think that's an important point to make. Like that, if you're a musician and you're listening and you're thinking, I think Chris actually outlined a really good way to go slowly. Like, don't rush. Don't need to make 10,000 NFTs. Do a Pope. Do something small. Start
exactly. This is it, and I think those things as well. Like, it's not, it's if you make it cheap to like. I know that doesn't maybe sound as sexy to a lot of musicians that are like, but not making no money. But like, if you do a POAP or if you do, like a Polygon airdrop, like free claim, like why not? And just test the water. See if there is how many of your followers have a wallet. How many of them don't have one but would like to know why they should get one. And like those things, it's like everything. It might take a little while. Some artists it won't take any time at all, but I think if you allow people, I think the barrier of entry to most NFTs is way too high. Like, and that's as someone who does collect NFTs and has like stupid expensive NFTs, but the barrier now is too high for most of those. And I think like for musicians, it needs to come back down to like almost in line with selling a download or selling
with a little transaction fee on top, and then that's what it's conditioning.
Yeah, just see. But then show them why, show them what, and then, like if that free one got them access to a free download or something, they got tickets for your tour early or you added them to the guest list at something, like they then see, oh, cool. Or like, even something as basic as like a locked channel on a Discord that allows you're going to pop into once a week and hang out and play like Among Us with people. I don't know, like you could do whatever you want on Discord, right? But little things like that like you can give people for free, and then it creates a value around it, doesn't it? Like you could give it away for free. You could say there's only 100, just testing this out, and then suddenly anyone who missed that first 100 is like, I will buy my way into that. I'll buy yours off you, and then suddenly someone flips it, and it's like, wow, something you gave away for free now has value because you cooked that value into it. You gave it utility, and I think most musicians can relate to that and would feel comfortable. Like, this is how I'm going to enter the market.
Yeah.
Here's something for nothing. The next one you'll have to pay for. And it's like,
it happens often.
Why not?
I think back to those, like what you were saying about banging, vinyls out your boot. It's just occurred to me that this format is like a 90s distribution with a digital twist. Because in the 90s, you had to build your own brand, you had to build your awareness, and all those DJs had to they had to put the work in, man. They had to put the legwork in. But now the legwork can be done digitally. And all they were doing back then was building a community around themselves, and that's what they have to do now. And it kind of like, interesting what you're saying about airdrops as well. Like if you think, for example, a few things went in my head then actually. One of them's, I've got an idea for one of your events, Chris. But yeah, tie-ins with Audius, for example. Like Audius is a streaming platform for music. So imagine every person that's got Audius tokens. So now you know that they've got a vested, staked interest in blockchain and music. They've shown interest, or potentially they're just showing interest in the technology as an investment. Either way, they're interested, guaranteed. Now, if you could approach Audius and say, hey, I want to airdrop my new single to a portion of your users, this is a whole new distribution method, and it's a similar method.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you've said it a couple of times, and I agree. It makes sense. And like the idea for your event, and I'm going to tell you because I've got to get it out of my head. Imagine you've got an event happening, right? And you've distributed NFT tickets. And on this NFT ticket, there's, let's say the capacity of the venue is 500 cap venue. And from the 500 tickets, 100 of them were special. At midnight, 100 tickets ping in your wallet and say, yo, you've just got access to room 2 where there's a special DJ playing. You haven't talked about this DJ at all. Maybe it's your boy, I don't know, someone big. This kind of... I mean, I'm going to feel damn special, man. And again, I said this idea to someone else and they were like, oh, but what about the people who don't get it? They just keep coming back until they do get it, right? That's what I...
Yeah, I like the idea of almost like, I think club nights that run on a weekly basis could use NFTs as like membership cards. Like we see with like Pool Suite. The Pool Suite members got access to their events in London and New York recently, and it's like every club night could do that. Could do like a 250 membership cards. That if you have that on your wallet, you can scan it at the door. We've got apps that can do that now already. Scan it at the door, free entry, and it's like free entry for life, or it might like gradually go down over time. So the first one's free, second one's 20% off, next one's like 18%. It gradually goes down over time until it's sold to someone else and then starts again. Or I don't know. There's like so much you can do. There's so much I know you can do in smart contracts that I don't know how to build those. Right. This is the thing. Is like an artist or a promoter might come up with a really cool idea that needs to just sit down with a dev who's like, we can create a smart contract that like maybe like the sell-on percentage goes down over time or goes up, or all those things that are definitely doable, or if they're not doable, someone can rewrite the code and make it a thing on some platform somewhere. And it's like all of this can happen. Anything you can think of in this space, anything clever, or any kind of like new utility you can cook into holding a token, an app can be built for that, to give that utility that you need. And it's like I'm quite heavily invested in like So Rare, if anyone plays like the fantasy football NFT game. And it's like, when I first got in, I was like, oh, well, why would I pay money to play fantasy football? But they support other people building third-party games and apps that you can use these NFT cards on. So it's like, not only am I using the cards on So Rare, I can enter them in So Rare Mega. I can enter them in Thing and still win prizes with them on other platforms using the same cards. It's like,
You're big.
you can do this with NFTs. You can create this and more.
You're pretty like active
More,
on
sorry?
SoRare that I've seen as well. And I was just going to kind of ask you, what are the elements that keep? I've seen you, Chris. Like you're killing it on there. What's the kind of what keeps you coming back to it, man? Why? Because you said at the beginning there, your first impression of it was, why would I pay? What are the core things that, like, I've seen that you're on you do a video chat about it as well. Is it a cultural thing?
Yeah, we do like a weekly podcast and that now with the foot. So the things I liked about, so when I first got into it, my friend was like bugging me about it. He knew that I had some Ethereum. I wasn't really staking Ethereum anywhere. I wasn't doing it. It was just sat there in my wallet. And he was like, "Oh, you should play this NFT game." And I was like, like I tried to do crypto kitties in 2017. Didn't really make any money breeding them or selling them. I thought the idea of holding like football NFTs was probably not going to turn me a profit. And like, I had some other NFTs in my wallet, but not really much at that point. It was just like a few punts that I'd taken on things that maybe didn't go great. But SoRare, I knew the footballers. There wasn't loads of them on the platform at the time, so they didn't have the licenses for like lots of the big clubs that they do now. But I recognised a few players, and I thought, I can play these cards in a game. So my initial thought was, I can move some Ethereum into this game and let them sit in the NFTs, and if I want to get out, I can sell them. Then I thought, that's cool. In my head, that's sensible. I can try and win some Ethereum and some cards by using them in the game. So you use the cards, you own the player, and then that player's real world performance, like if you follow football, the Opta stats, give them scores based on how many passes, tackles, like how many goals they scored, how many corners they took, like all these things create part of a score. And like if you're into football and you're a nerd like I am, then you can look into all the statistics of like who takes corners, how many like dribbles do they make per game, how often do they start, like all the things that you need to know to like compete. But then you're competing against other people, but there's a scarce amount of each of those players as well. So if you're one of only, there's like different scarcities of each player. So like some scarcities there'll only be 10 of each one, some will be 100, some will be 1,000. But yeah, long story short, I love watching football. It got me watching football in countries that I had no interest in watching football in before. Like I follow the J League, I follow the K League, I follow the Belgian Jupiler Pro League now. Like I know more about football now than my friend who writes for the football at the Daily Mirror. Like we have chats about it. It's like
caught you though, didn't it?
But so
into
it's
football, man, and those cards weren't into you. You were like, it's not a bunch of stats I don't understand. I get this. Like it's cool.
Yeah, it was like I was buying players that I'm not buying them because it's Lionel Messi and it's collectible. I don't really approach SoRare from a collectible perspective at all. I'm like, can that player score me a 70 this weekend? How much does he cost? And am I likely to win a card or some Ethereum this weekend if I've got that player in my team? And it's like, or do I buy that player knowing that they're likely to break into the first team next season, therefore their price will 5x from where it is now? And it's like, once certain players become more give more utility in the game, they become more valuable because more people want them in their team. But if there's only 100 of said player for each season, and you hold 5 of them, then you've got 5% of the supply. You can pretty much control what the floor price is, and it's fascinating. There's so many layers to that game. But when I started playing it, I'm like, how do we approach music like this? And I did think about like, is there a music version of this game
now? Like, can you have
there
cards
is,
with DJs? Like, how many gigs they got?
You could have it exactly. But this is the thing: is like you can bot that game. You could break it. Like people don't realize how many people's like inflated like plays on Spotify, all sorts of things. Like you could literally cheat in the music industry. You could put any. So there's like. The answer to my question was you can't do that with music because there's no real organic way of knowing like who's performing better than others, because it's just money and someone throwing money at it at the end of the day. In football, it's all about like a game that is out of everyone's control. to the most extent. They have to play well on the day. If they don't, then they don't score well, and your call was bad. But the difference between like maybe putting on a football bet, whereas like I bet £5 that this is going to happen in a game, then it doesn't happen and you've lost your fiver. In So Rare, if I get it wrong this week, it's all right. He's got another game on Wednesday. I'll try again. Like, you don't have to pay to enter. So like, I've basically got fun for the rest of my life, or as long as those NFTs like have utility, I'll have an invested like interest in the football, and I love that because I don't gamble anymore because I've got enough interest in the fun of the weekend watching So Rare. But instead of just watching like the top 5 European leagues, I'm watching. I wake up and watch K League like Saturday morning at 7.
That's mad that
it's just on my phone.
Deep in, but it's the thing that really interests me there is how it's kind of conditioned. It's taken a person that had an interest already and then given them something that fit with their personality and their desire, and then it's worked for you basically. And I also play So Rare, and I think it's cool. And I'm just trying to get to how does it. It's like it's all about community building. That's what. Like I've just received a question here, and it says, "Why do you think blockchain tech and NFTs are needed in the music industry?" Now, my one-word answer would basically just be fairness, and that it's very hippie though. Like people need to be paid better. People need to get better allocations, and that would be my basic premise of it. But what would you say, Chris, if someone said to you, "Why do we need blockchain tech and NFTs in music?" It's either going to be
I would say it's like access to like direct access to fans in a way that's maybe a bit bigger than like a bit broader than like something like Bandcamp, which is great if you're like if you've adapted yourself to the kind of communication of letting your fans and followers know that this is the best place to support me musically. And it's like if everyone gets used to doing that on Web3, then it will create a new learned behavior like across sort of like music consumption, if you like, that you can just listen to it on Spotify, or if you really like that artist, buy their NFT and get access to all this other stuff that like isn't on Spotify, because they are trying to incentivize people to do that. And over time, the core fans of someone like Drake or someone would rather own an NFT that gives them access to like his like side catalog or his mixtapes that he starts putting out, or whatever, things that artists will start doing to like sideline their existing deals. So their old like record deals, them catalogs will be on these platforms forever. And some of them might decide that I'm going to save this album for my core fans, or I'm going to do something for, and though I think that's where Web3 is likely to be used. But like, to answer the question of why does music need, and I think it's just like it needs a bit of a reset in terms of like the power shift is so far towards like Spotify now that like something needs to disrupt it, because they have so much control over the entire industry now that it's unhealthy. And yeah, I think that like people could come in and disrupt the space. So even just like artists engaging with this Web3 is already getting people worried at the Spotifys and the majors, and that on its own is a great thing, because I think it kicks them to do better. It's like, don't walk away and do an NFT, we'll give you more money, we'll give you a better percentage, we'll give you a better rate. So even if artists are still releasing in the old ways, this will force them to do better. And that's why I think we all need to embrace it, because if we all embrace it, it will scare them a bit more, and they'll have to do better than they are now.
Last bit there, that you're pushing towards a change, and that scares people, and then they have to make a change. I mean, obviously, it'd still be a win either way if the artist is paid more. I suppose what I said was about fairness. So then people would say, "Oh, well, Ian, you've achieved your goal. It's better," but it's not my total goal. I think that I really value the interaction side of this. Like as an example, and just now thinking while you were talking, man, like so. An artist I like, Kendrick Lamar, dropped his album last week. Waited for the album, listened to The Heart, which was his prequel to the album, got all excited about that. So Monday morning, I'm listening. Friday, I'm waiting. Saturday, I find myself buying tickets to a gig in Berlin. Spent a lot of money. Yeah, I know. I've spent a lot of money and I've spent a lot of time. Didn't actually get much for my interaction with Kendrick Lamar, his music, and my dedication to the cause. All I got was the music, which arguably is enough. But still feel like I've been I don't feel important enough.
Like you've still got the same experience as anyone who's streaming it for free or downloading it for free, or like apart from the fact that you've bought tickets to the gig, you're gonna have an experience that they might not have.
It
But
didn't add on. I don't mind paying for it, but it's just I don't feel part of the crew. Like I don't feel like I've been doing a pat on. I don't want. It sounds really stupid now, but I don't want. I mean, I don't want a pat on the back.
No, it's true though.
I just want to feel like
if you had some kind of proof of ownership of that album that you could use to do, and then that's up to Kendrick to figure out what he does to repay the people who paid for it instead of people who just listened to it, and then that engages people in future to, if something really cool comes of it and like everyone gets hold of, oh, this is so cool, like everyone who bought the album got this instead of like people who just listened to it, then the next album comes out, people who listen to it a lot will be like, do you know what, I'm just going to buy it. And you wouldn't believe the difference in, if everyone, there is a stat actually, let me try and remember it. So like 1,000 people buying a £10 album is the same as 1,000 people streaming that album front to back 5 times a day, every day for a year. And like that will make that artist a tenner. Who listens to an album 5 times a day every day? Not many people.
That much, right?
But 1,000. But if 1,000 people buy it, they might only listen to it for a couple of weeks, and then something else comes out. The way music is now, there's so much that you might only listen to an album for a few months over your summer break or something like that, and then something else comes out and you listen to that, and then you only listen to a couple of tracks off the old album. They go into a playlist that you listen to on your commute or something. But if you buy an album, then you might feel like, oh, I've just spent 10 quid or whatever. But if that 10 quid then leads to some insane festival that artist puts on, like the Astro World things that went on, like the Travis Scott stuff. Like, imagine if like that was only open to people who bought the album. That is completely feasible, because if you bought a version of that album and it could easily fund something like that, because artists don't sell albums anymore. If Kendrick Lamar sold 1 million copies of his album at a 10 quid a go, he definitely has enough money to throw a pretty cool festival in the summer for everyone.
Like it's full circle. I think it's really just find it.
Yeah, it's like creating a funding loop, isn't it, for like doing cool stuff, but rewarding people who helped fund it, and it's in a way that like we can verify that you bought it without you having to like chase down your receipts and all that. It's like, no, that's in your wallet. That proves you bought it. So long as that still lives in your wallet and it hasn't been sold to someone else, you have access to this. And yeah, I think that's something cool. And I'm sure that it's something.
I hope we do see a lot more of that. We'll you can just imagine the idea that an NFT ticket, for example, or something is evolving over time. It just, again, it makes a lot of sense, man. Chris, I got another question here, and it was actually something that I think about as well, and I've got my own kind of thought on it. But so, what is stopping a company like Spotify or something just coming in and do the same thing they are doing now on the blockchain? I think this is about on Chris.
Rights.
Exactly.
It all boils down to rights, and there is no right. Yeah, there's no rights. There's no rights currently in place that would allow them to sell. Spotify have no right to sell your music. They have a right to give people access to listen to it in a private setting. That's it. So Spotify could build something, but they'd need to create new agreements for every piece of music that lives on their platform. So you imagine the amount of work that would cost. But I'm sure that they will be building something. Every company out there that does this is probably thinking, how do we do it web-free? How do we do it? And like, if you look at like Opulus as an example, Ditto is a music distributor. Opulus came out and was like, how about we do music distribution whereby fans kind of crowd share and take an ownership of a slice of the royalties?
That's cool.
Which is an interesting concept, but it's still built on the old web. It's still built on the old Web 2 rights. And one thing I think it will do is it will shine a light on how bad sort of like deals are for these artists, because essentially if you buy a share in one of these Oculus drops, you are kind of like funding a advance for that artist. So anyone who did buy that is probably going to experience exactly how bad the deal is for the artist at the moment. So if you did invest in something like that, you might not see, you might not break even on your investment for like a couple of years or something. Sorry, my dog's getting mad. It's that time of day where like the wife gets home and the kids and he's like waiting, you know. So he's at the stairs. But yeah, I think that's the reason is like, and it's another part of the reason with Oculus as an example is it's new music. It can't do it with old back catalogue, and I think that like Spotify, there will be people out there that will create things like this, but again, they'll be populated firstly with new music and music that isn't owned or is out of contract and stuff like that. The reason that Spotify and all of these apps work now is because you can access everything. As soon as you create a new revenue model that like the Web3 space is creating, you can't really access all those old legacy albums, and unfortunately most people just want to listen to old music. So I don't think Spotify can do it. I don't think they could, not just yet.
Kind of
Anyway,
need
it would
that
take
like
them a long time.
tipping point moment. I think when Jay-Z tried to start Tidal, I think he was trying to do something similar, but it just didn't work for him. Chicken and egg the whole time. People, right?
The problem is
People.
the problem is like, it's the consumers and they're what they expect. It's like they expect it the cheapest and the best they can get, and it's like it's going to be really hard to like bring those people over. But if you can bring over like a small percentage of your music, like your listener base on Spotify, and get them to pay. Like I said, I've got 50,000 monthly listeners on Spotify last time I checked, and if I could get 1% of those to buy my next album, I'd actually have quite a bit of money. So you don't have to look at like bringing everyone. You just have to communicate it to the people that matter the most.
Is there any? I remember when we were chatting a couple of weeks ago when we spoke about organising this, and you mentioned to me that somebody was kind of doing similar things, but they were doing it in Web 2, building an audience, hosting like sit downs, and kind of doing all the Web 3 things, but doing it in Web 2, perhaps because they weren't really savvy with Web 3. Do you remember that bit? I can't remember who the DJ was. I think it was. Who was it?
I think it was maybe I was talking about an artist called Merkage Dave, who is like a singer-songwriter, kind of like a rapper. But he's got like a Patreon that gives you access to a Discord. So it's like all the things that you'd expect like a token-gated kind of Discord community to have, but he just does it, through his Patreon on his Discord. He kind of likes the idea of NFTs. He's just not too sure like what that would look like. And he was that classic artist of like, I love the idea of it, but I don't really understand why. And why would someone rather do that than just give me a Patreon or?
Well, there's a bunch of people.
And but these are things I think like like JME is another artist who I've spoken to who I'm like his whole kind of ethos, the Boy Better Know brand, that him and Skepta and all those guys like is like you could tokenize that and create like a membership base and give access to like gigs that are funded by all the community, accessible only to members, all of that stuff. And his response is always, but I can do that now. I can just mail them out like
because
membership card.
That's how Boy Better Know was built.
Exactly.
Wasn't it? On the back of a community, on the back of like Don't Watch That TV, on the back of
selling t-shirts on selling t-shirts on Shopify and MySpace, and having people's physical addresses and actually dropping them t-shirts to their house in some cases and stuff. Like it's like why it just like to that kind of era and that he's just like but I can just do that now, and like I couldn't really argue with it. It's like it does. I don't think Web3.
He'd literally be the one I'd expect who would be the most engaged with this, but then because of what you just said, you can't.
He's just like he said to me, until you show me something I can't do in Web 2 or Web 3, I'm just like whatever. Like I'll buy. He buys crypto. Like I'll be an investor, but he's not. He doesn't really. He's just not sold on the whole utility side of it just yet. But something will get him. You know,
Just
he'll
thinking
get him
backtrack
eventually, and he'll
10,
be like,
12
that's cool.
years, imagine we're having this conversation 12 years ago and Boy Better Know's about to pop. I think it would have been their main vessel, you know? Like that's how they did their thing in the first place. I
Yeah,
think it could have
yeah,
been their main vessel. Perhaps it's like, I don't need to from a JME perspective. He's like, yo, I'm kind of done, man. Like
yeah.
he's
I
done his
think
thing.
that's
It doesn't
definitely
mean
part
that
of it.
their label can't
Yeah,
nurture talent to come through in that direction, and I'd like to see that from those guys because I do feel like they
Skepta's just done. Skepta's done like a token. He's got a social token out. He's like Stilo brand, which is like fashion. It's kind of like fashion meets culture. It's almost like an online magazine blog type thing, and they just launched a social token. So it'll be interesting to see how he takes it. Yeah, he was messaging me the other day asking if I'd like spoken to Lasher and that lot at Stilo. I haven't had a conversation with them yet, but I did pick up some of the Stilo token
Chris, for
just
you,
to
like, and
do my bit.
we're running well over here, mate, and I'm going to let you go now. I'm sorry, man. I've dragged this on for way much longer. It's just fun, man. So good
Just
chat.
in the time, yeah.
I think it's. I want to wrap it up with like some kind of actionable points here because we've had a good chat, and I think main points to take away from this for musicians, I believe, is that for me it feels like imagine a massive empty room, not empty, a massive hall full of musicians. They're all looking at each other going, you heard about this NFT stuff? Like, I really want to get into it. And they're all looking at each other going, yeah, but I don't know anything about it either. And it's like, we've got to bring this together somehow to, because I want to see that change in music. The reason I became an agent, first of all, and this might sound cheesy, literally just because I wanted to get people paid. I was sick of seeing DJs go out, slog their guts out, bloody handing out flyers. You know, these kids, they work their bollocks off and they get 25 quid, which they had to chase the promoter for at the end as well. And that's why I became an agent at the beginning of it all, to get people paid for their hard work. And I think it might, people like us might be needed to push this because it feels like it's that again, right? It's like, I think it's new.
Definitely. This is the part of it, I think. I think like one of the most like of appealing things to it is when I tell people, I hope that like one of my main hopes is not even like a really like crazy one, is I hope that in future, you know, like our sort of distribution channels will be sort of smart contracts or NFT contracts that, you know, here's all the splits. Like when the money comes in at the end of the month, it goes into this pot and everyone's wallet gets like, just gets the money that's owed to them. So there's no invoicing, no chasing. And no one who runs a label has to worry about, oh, have I kept up to date with this person's account? Like, no, it just goes in, it splits it, everyone's happy, no one's chasing, no paperwork. That is like the most basic win for a lot of independent musicians, because that will give you extra hours every month to like create or relax. You know, the mental health crisis in the music industry is very real, and it's because we have to be on social media every day. We have to do that. We have to do this. Like, you sign a deal, you have to post this, and it's part of like being a DJ now. Is like you have to be a dickhead in your garage for a bit, like because you got to promote. And it's like I'm the king of being a dickhead in my garage, so that's fine for me. But it's not cool for everyone. But it's okay for me, but not for everyone. But yeah, I think that like actionable things is just like if you are listening to this and you have an interest in music, but you also have some knowledge around Web3 and you know, maybe we need to create some more conversations, some communities. There are sort of music DAOs out there that are putting these people together, but there's nothing like really big and focused. And it's just like, how can we all come together and help? And I think that like one of the nicest things that I'm seeing is like, I love putting musicians who have these ideas into a room with like a dev who maybe likes their music, but also could really help them like mint that NFT that idea that they've got, or you know, I can build the code to put this onto like a website, or build some really basic website that allows them to within a few clicks make like a, you know, like how in Web 2 we have like Shopify where it's like, oh, put your merch item up here, here, what do you want to pay, what's your PayPal, where's the money going, and then bang, and they'll take like a little transactional fee. There's like, why isn't there like a front page like where I can just mint my own, like I don't want to put my NFT on like OpenSea. I want it to land on my website or like land on a page or something that like I can integrate into my website you know, like, why isn't there something like that that's just like allow people to mint like a contract from your website, or from, you know, like create like your own page with your own graphics, but, you know, upload. It's like everything lives on someone else's platform or on OpenSea at the moment, and there's no like, well, I just want to quit. I saw something that looked quite promising, but I cannot for the life of me remember where it was now. But something like that would be really powerful for artists, like a kind of DIY front, like
Bandcamp
house,
do.
front of house, like mint. Yeah, basically like a bit like Bandcamp, but like direct to artists. Yeah, exactly. It's like, so I'm working on a platform similar called Autonomies, which should launch. You know, we're on testnet now. We should be on mainnet in the next month or two. Been working on it for like a year, and that is pretty much the premise of that. It's like Bandcamp for NFTs. So it's like put an EP live, artists can still get the files. Everything's priced in USDC, so it's very easy to see like what things are worth, and just to try and make it a bit easier for people coming from the music world in the Web2 space to like mint an NFT that feels very similar to uploading something to Bandcamp, basically. So I think there's things like that at the start is like, and then it's about, like I said, the education. Like, great, now your fans can buy an NFT. What are you going to give them access to for it? And that's the next step, really, is like, we can make something like that. But I think that, like, yeah, there should be more customizable, like, NFT shop front, like, for artists to just like build their own, create like a .xyz like URL, and then go like, hey, here's my NFT, like, it belongs to this collection and this, and like it's on this chain,
It's like,
and like click here to like mint, and it's like, you know, the experience is the same as it is when you land on like Doodles,
feel a bit special. You feel a bit like you've landed on the homepage of this thing, and you're not just in a marketplace.
Yeah. There's a big countdown towards it. It's like, otherwise I'm just linking you to an OpenSea page, and it just doesn't look very exciting.
It's not personable. It's not like, this is mine.
Yeah.
Then I'm getting something from this. It's like, oh, I've just put this on this market.
Yeah.
In the same way I could put this on any market. It's a bit, it loses the touch, basically, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's some of the good platforms out there, but they're really hard to get onto as well. So there's a lot of musicians that probably do have a crowd or an audience that like isn't visible to, you know, like if I wanted to go and do a release on like Super Rare or like one of those, like, you know, like Nifty or something like that. It's like, well, how many followers have you got? Like, what kind of numbers are you doing? In music, they'll look at Spotify and it's like, oh, that doesn't look like they've got many. But for all they know, they've got a Bandcamp user base that like they've got 500 or 600 people that buy every release. And it's like, you know, if you're only doing 100 NFTs, like that's going to sell out in minutes. But a lot of these platforms don't see that. So why not give an artist the opportunity to just do it on their own page through like a code
like a
that's
white
built
label
for them with a very basic front end.
Put their sort of top on it and say, right, that's me, and then I'm going to do, that would be very cool, man.
Like,
I think
exactly, like add your header, add your like what color do you want the background to be, like, you know, like how like creative people used to get with MySpace back in the day. Like, why not make it like
perfect
that?
idea, Chris. Like, if you could make it so they could actually use it rather than go into a dev, or rather like a bloody GoDaddy for selling NFT albums. Strip it back, make it simple, drag and drop.
Why not?
Here's your thing, your smart contracts are created, they've already been audited by Certic, here they are, boom, 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 off you go. It's coming, man. Like,
exactly.
Someone's gonna build it.
Someone can build that. Probably can't be. Exactly. This is the thing as well. It's like, we can say, like, why ain't someone building it? It's like, you know, there's 5 people building that right now, and it's probably coming out next week. But that's Web3. It's like, these are things, like all these problems. This is another thing I always say is like, all the problems and arguments that you have against NFTs right now are it's so short term. You blink, and this time next year we'll be laughing about the fact that gas fees were what they were this time last year, and well, hopefully, you know, like when the merge happens. But wait and see. But you know, we do have options now. I think that like the snobbery around like ETH chain NFTs versus Solana versus Polygon, all of that won't matter to most consumers so long as they get the utility they wanted. They won't care what chain it's on. Whereas like, you know, like the diehards, the like the blockchain heads will probably always care a little bit. But most of the people that you're trying to sell them to this time next year won't really care what chain it's on, so long as they
It's the
can
thing I say a lot,
get
man.
the use they
it's
need
like
out of
cash
it.
machines. I always made this analogy. Like nobody gives a crap how the cash machine works as long as when you press the buttons, you get your money, right? There's a lot of technology sitting behind it. Actually, a cash machine was the first iteration
Yeah.
of public internet. And I bet people don't know that, but like that's what it is. But they don't care. Give me my money. Give me my money. And
That makes sense. Yeah. This is it. No one knows how the email sends. They all use it every day, and I think that will happen with a lot of this NFT stuff. The easier it is to like just buy one, but make one, collect one, etc. Then no one's going to be worrying about what chain it's on, where it lives. Like,
and
so
why
long as
should
it
they
is an
worry about
NFT and
where
it
it is?
has
Why
utility.
should you give your customers those
no one.
concerns when the world dictates that customers want the least concerns going? You know, we've been conditioned to just kind of want it to be simple, you want it to be fast, and you want it to be efficient. You don't want to have to. We know how complex things can be on the blockchain, right? So I think the overriding kind of picture here is that much closer than we were in 2017-18. I think we're really close, and I think this crash, I actually believe this recession is going to help this. I think in times of recession that people look for value. I think event promoters are going to start looking at how to save money on how to distribute tickets. That's going to lead to NFT tickets. I think it's going to change. I think it's going to happen. Do I think somebody like Beyonce is going to drop an NFT album? No, I wish they would. I think there's a reason they can't. But that would change it, right? That would be an overnight education session for the world, but it won't happen.
Yeah. There will definitely be an artist of that size at some stage in the next 5 years that will be out of their current deal, and then they might try it. But I think most people, you know, like it won't be a greatest hits. It will have to be a new album. It will have to be. So like, yeah, we're waiting for an artist to like come out of their current like contract, and it will. There'll be a few mid-tier artists, but like you said, when a Beyonce or an Ed Sheeran or a Jay-Z or a Kanye
I can see
does
Ed
it, then
being one that
everyone else is going to jump on it.
I like Ed, man. I was watching him back on SBTV. I was watching Buskin Redding. Like, I really like him, and I think he, of all people, built his community around him in the old school way. Like, that guy did the work. Like, I've seen him play to pubs full of drunk students, like on a bench playing his acoustic guitar. I think if anyone can. No way, man.
He warmed up for me at Fabric once.
That's crazy.
True story. He literally played a PA about 5 songs before my DJ set in room 2 at Fabric. You can still see the flyer online. I think it's 2009 or something. That's my claim to fame. My kids get old. Like, look at me above Ed Sheeran on the flyer.
Madness, man. That is madness. But yeah, I can see people like that going in that direction because of how they built their following. Okay, Ed's big. Ed's got ridiculously big. But let's take him back to his humble beginnings. Could be a guy to take this in a different direction. But right, Chris, we got to wrap this up, man. We got to wrap this up. Let you get off to your family and your dog, man. I'm very sorry. We've been going. All good. Okay, cool.
Yeah, he's all good.
I just want to thank you, man. I want to thank you for
taking
the time out of your hectic schedule to come and talk to me. I want to thank you for educating the almost 400 people that showed up to listen to this AMA, Chris. This is cool, man. This is a good. It's a good sign, man. It's a good sign. It's a sign that people are interested.
Wow, great.
It's a sign that there's a lot of musicians out there who are perhaps a little bit confused as well, I think. And they.
I hope we've.
What it is, okay.
Got everyone
and one
thinking
thing I was
a bit
going to
more
say to you,
at least.
You yourself backtrack 12 months, 18 months. What advice would you give to a musician who doesn't know a goddamn thing about anything we spoke about today? NFT is as Spanish to them as anything. What advice would you give to someone to get going, you know, take it easy and start things off? What would you do, man, if you could do it now?
I would say YouTube is like a hub of information on like how to do this, how to do that. Like, if you have any questions, go on there, watch a few videos, do like the classic one, do your own research is so like true in this space. And I think that like getting to grips with things, if you wanted to like have a go at minting, I'd say like for me personally, one I kind of tend people to is like go OpenSea and have a go at doing it on Polygon. It costs like next to no money, and yeah, once they've done that, they can kind of see how it might look, what it might do. So yeah, that would be
Very
my
cool,
kind
man,
of
very
like
cool.
my
And
entry
I think it's
level
important again
to all
that
of this.
we're
I would
talking
say.
about blockchain and crypto and music. We're definitely not saying here that you need to go out and invest in Ethereum to understand how music and blockchain can work better together. That's not.
Yeah, exactly. Don't need to buy anything just yet. Like figure out what it
Load.
is, figure out how to do it. Then maybe dip your toes in like one of the cheaper chains and see how that works and experience what it's like to buy and mint. And yeah, once you get a little feel for it, like I'm still in this process myself. I haven't like minted my like official first big NFT thing. I'm aware of how to do it, but I'm still there. I'm still learning.
You nailed
so,
it.
You
nailed it early
take your
doors. You
time,
said to
figure it out,
me, "There's no," and
get the
somebody said this
knowledge.
to me 5 years ago. If somebody comes up to you and says, "I'm an expert in blockchain or crypto or anything to do with this industry," bullshit. No one's an
Yeah,
expert. The industry's far too new. It's 10 years
yeah.
old
No
at
one's an
best.
expert.
Nobody can be
No
an
one's an
expert.
expert.
None of us know everything. We just know different things. So when we bring it all together, we can make a change, right? Right. Oh, hopes.
Exactly.
I didn't even mention it. We've spoken about them 100
Yeah.
times. Right, guys, we're going to see the number of 400 go down to like 10 now. There's 100. Is there 100? Yes, there's 100 popes available for this AMA. It's a special one. It's got a picture of Chris's face on it and everything. You just visit the Pope Claim channel, which is in our Discord channel. We've got a special Pope Claim channel. Go there, tell the person that you attended, and you get yourself a Pope with Chris's face. Right, Chris, thank you so much, man. I really have enjoyed this podcast. I hope we get to chat again. Maybe we'll meet up in London, and yeah, it will be cool, man. Speak more blockchains. Future. Thanks for your time, man. Really appreciate it.
Great.
No problem.
Thanks for
All right,
having me.
take it easy. Okay.
Cheers,
so
everyone. Thanks
what
very
else have
much.
we got coming this week on Discord? We've got another show tomorrow with Pedro and Modesta. They'll be going through, I believe, our latest blockchain gaming report. So yeah, tune in tomorrow, 3 p.m. UTC tomorrow. What else? That's it really from me today. We've ran over by a long time. I'm very sorry, guys, but it was an interesting chat. If you'd like to hear more chats like this where we kind of dive into topics, shout at us, tell us. If you don't want to hear from blockchains every week, but you'd like to dive into ideas and get a bit of education, there's a shout. We're more than keen to do these things. All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. It's been an awesome session. I wish you all a lovely evening. Thank you so much. Don't forget to go get your popes. Bye.